Hey everybody, how is it going today? Well, I haven't done a TSNP update video in a few days, and it has recently broke out of its consolidation, so I want to go over the latest price action on that stock. Plus, as always, I want to go over some other stocks I think have a great chance of going up real soon. Now, if you are new to my channel, I like to find short-term and long-term trading opportunities in typically lower-priced stocks. I like to find undervalued stocks with high growth potential and talk about all other things finance-related as well. If that's something that interests you, please consider subscribing so you don't miss any future trading opportunities. But please remember, I am not a financial advisor, so please do all of your own research before buying any of these stocks. All right, well, the first one we are going to get into, of course, is Tesaro Enterprises, ticker symbol TSNP. In my last video, I talked about this consolidation that was right around between, I think it was about 14 cents and 17 cents. And this was a very unusual sideways move for a stock that has been so volatile recently. And since then, it has broken out to the upside. If we zoom in just a little bit closer, we can see that it broke above this 8-period exponential moving average and has been holding it ever since. And of course, the next form of resistance is right here, right about 24 cents. Actually, you know what? I think it's even a little bit lower than that. If we go to the intraday chart, we're going to see it just a little bit better. Actually, I think it's right around 23 cents. So it is knocking on the door of that price level. And if we can get a move up through that price level on decent volume, because as we can see, this volume is still minuscule compared to what it was on the earlier run up. So there are a lack of sellers for sure, because you think that people that bought in this area after this pullback would be, chomping at the bit to get most of their money back. But there just hasn't been a lot of selling. Now, of course, that could change tomorrow. But if it can get through this price level, I think there is a fantastic chance that it's going to be able to get some momentum and possibly take out this high right here, about 36 cents. Let's go to the intraday chart real quick. All right, well, switching over to the 15-minute chart, we can see that this price expansion to the upside is looking perfectly. It's leveling up just like you want to see in this. One thing I like about TSNP is it levels up really nicely. So you really have a pretty easy time trying to decipher the trend that it's in on the short term. If you are short term trading this stock, you're probably not going to find too many that have this many opportunities. I mean, it's just support, resistance, support, resistance. I mean, it's just perfectly playing out. But this thing looks like it is poised to take out this resistance level that I was talking about earlier. And you can see this is a pretty substantial resistance level because it has so many touches. I'll count them all out real quick. But there was 4 pretty good touches in this recent run up. So I wouldn't be surprised if it bumps its head up against this and pulls back at least a little bit. But if it can get through this, I think this next resistance level up at 31 cents, it should make it to that level quite easily. And that's a pretty decent move up from 23 cents. So I think things are looking pretty good for Tesaro Enterprises. Let me get this stuff out of here real quick. Let me show you the weekly chart before we jump on to the next chart, because I think you guys are going to like that chart as well. All right, well, here is the weekly chart, and as we can see, this is probably the nicest looking chart. In my opinion, it certainly is the nicest looking chart in all the time frames, and it is always a good thing to have the weekly chart looking super bullish. If we zoom in just a little bit closer to the weekly chart, we can see it found support at the 8-period exponential moving average and has been holding it ever since, and now we are getting a bullish candle. And if this thing can close above the resistance level that I talked about earlier, tomorrow, that is going to be a dynamite looking bullish candle that's coming off of this 8-period exponential moving average hold. So, I mean, that is a super, super bullish looking pattern. I think if you are a long-term holder of this stock, I mean, you got to be loving this weekly pattern at the moment, because this chart is just looking better and better, and there hasn't even been a lot of volume coming into it yet. So if they get a spike in volume for whatever reason, I mean, I think this stock has a very good chance of taking out the previous high. So things are still looking really good for TSNP. And as long as it closes up tomorrow, I think this has been a fabulous week for TSNP. All right, well, the next one I want to look at is CHEK. We've been talking about this one. We've mentioned it several times in the Patreon a few weeks ago, and I've been talking about it ever since, and it has been a very popular stock. But if you missed this run-up, what you could have done was wait for it to pull back to this 8-period exponential moving average. And if you're new to the channel, you definitely want to put this moving average on your chart. It's the 8-period exponential moving average. You will find that a lot of stocks bounce off of this moving average, and it doesn't even matter the time frame. If you like to trade in the 5-minute time frame, you are going to find that stocks will come down to this moving average and bounce off of it very often. Now, of course, the lower the time frame, the more false signals you're going to get. And the longer the time frame, the less false signals you're going to get. But of course, the trade-off is, on the 5-minute chart, you're going to get a ton of signals. If you go all the way to the weekly chart, the signals are going to be few and far between. So that's the trade-off when you're going up and down the time frames. But anyway, if you ever wondered if a stock is taking off, what do I do now? I don't want to FOMO into it. What everybody says is you want to buy the pullback. Well, of course, the next question is, when do you buy it? And what I like to do is buy it when it comes back down to this 8-period exponential moving average. I like to buy some when it touches that moving average like it did yesterday. And then if that moving average shows that it's going to be support, I want to double down. Just because it touches this moving average doesn't guarantee that the next day it's going to be up. But if it is, then you have a very good possibility that this is going to be a very profitable trade. So you just want to double down when you get that second signal. Think of it as like Texas Hold'em poker, and you get a couple of face cards. Just because you get a couple of face cards in your down cards doesn't mean you're going to win this hand no matter what. But it gives you a much better possibility, much better chances. And when you get those type of hands where the odds are in your favor, that's when you want to bet harder. So that's why I like to buy half when it comes down to that moving average and then double down once it shows support. But anyway, this stock looks like it has a very good chance of continuing the uptrend because, like I said, found that support and it's starting to follow through to the upside. So if any of you guys are in CHEK, congratulations, because I think it has a great possibility of continuing this move higher. But let's get on to the next one. All right, well, the next one I want to talk about is BOXL. And if you haven't been following this one is an online education company. The ticker symbol is BOXL, and this pattern is absolutely beautiful. Had the nice explosion up on big volume. Now we've entered the quiet period where it goes sideways, but now it is starting to round up. And we are getting that bullish candle that's breaking above this. Well, it's right at the old resistance level. So it's knocking on the door as we speak. But as we can see, it jumped above this 8-period exponential moving average, and it is holding it. And now it is starting to accelerate to the upside. This is one of my favorite patterns that I like to trade when I'm actually going to hold a lower price stock for the longer term. Usually I end up holding it for weeks to months. Most of the time I am swing trading some of these lower price stocks. I like to play the big volatility, but when it makes a pattern like this, it has a very good chance of having a sustainable uptrend. And I did a video on this pattern. I'm going to link it at the end of the video if you want to watch that and look at this pattern more in depth. But BOXL is making a picture-perfect example of that pattern. And actually, there was another stock that I had on my watch list that is making or was making. I'll jump over to it right now, but it was making a very similar pattern. Let me jump over there. Okay, here it is, ticker symbol IZEA, and I can't remember if I was talking about this one in the Patreon or if I was talking about it on YouTube. Something tells me that I was just talking about it in the Patreon. But as we can see, this is an identical pattern for the most part. I mean, these patterns aren't going to be super, super similar, but they're similar enough that it gives you a good idea of what could be coming. But anyway, we got the big explosion up on volume, then it enters into the quiet period. Had a little bit of a fake out here, but this was a little too soon to be running again. Usually want to see it trail off for at least a few more months, and that's exactly what IZEA did before it got into a more sustainable uptrend. And this thing is still moving to the upside. You can see that it was rounding out of that bottom, boom, jumped up, started holding that 8-period exponential moving average. Another big day to the upside, breaking through the previous resistance, and then it was off to the races. And if you look back at that box light pattern, I'll jump back to that before I move on, so you can see these similarities. But this is a very common pattern in some of the lower price stocks that go on pretty big moves. I know lately some of these penny stocks have just been going absolutely bananas. But that is not going to last forever. If you do want to make big gains in some of these lower price stocks, definitely go watch that video at the end, and that'll give you a better idea of what to look for, and then you can know what it looks like in the future. But let's jump back over to Boxlight real quick. But going back to Boxlight, we can see that it could be in the very beginning of that move up. And I think that has a very good possibility of that happening. This has been a popular stock, and it's been under accumulation, and it hasn't really been selling off anymore in the last few months. So that tells me that supply is drying up, and a move up could be imminent. But definitely Boxlight is worth keeping on your watch list to see if it busts higher. But let's get on to the next one. All right, the next one I want to talk about is XBIO. This one had a huge move up in early December, and then it sold off immediately, but it has since been grinding higher. And if I zoom in just a little bit closer, this is making that creeping trend that I like to watch, but once it comes down on the top of another support or resistance area that becomes support, that can lead to a trend acceleration. It's holding that 8-period exponential moving average, and it looks like it's poised to move higher. If we get a big green candle here, this stock could be off to the races again. If you remember that last pattern I just went over, this is not what I typically like to see in one of these stocks that broke higher. I like to see them kind of meander down sideways a little bit, but being that this one is a biotech, biotechs can have a mind of their own. They are just like one news article away from an explosion all the time, as we can see from this move right here. I mean, they are one treatment away from being approved for just another price explosion. You know, all these little biotech stocks. So when they continue to show this strength and they're holding that moving average, that's the only time I really get interested in these, when they haven't gone sideways long enough. But this one is showing a lot of strength. The only disclaimer I would put on this one, if I was trading it myself, I would take a little bit of a smaller position, because I think this has a higher probability of failing and moving back into this consolidation range right around the low 2s. But if this thing has a big candle day in the next day or so, I think it has a fantastic possibility of going on another screaming run. So XBIO is one that is definitely worth keeping on your watch list. And even if it does fail here and starts to trend sideways for the next couple of months, you should definitely keep it on your watch list, because that could be the making of that very powerful pattern that I like to use when I'm trading these lower price stocks for a longer term trade. So whether this thing breaks out or not, XBIO is certainly worth keeping on your watch list and seeing how it develops. All right, well, before I get out of here, I want to talk about the two that I featured in yesterday's video. I featured MTC, and this one had a decent-looking breakout starting. But if I zoom in a little bit closer, we can see it had a little bit of an inside day. I guess not typically an inside day, because it did break the high, but sort of an inside day anyway. I mean, I don't want to get too specific on candle patterns, but It's very similar to an inside day. Anyway, this is a very good sign. I mean, you might look at a day like this and you say, oh, well, it's down 2.3%. This is not a good day. When you get a breakout above this 8-period exponential moving average and you get a hold of it, whether it's an up day or a down day, that is a good sign. It's just because a stock doesn't go up right away the next day. I know that's hard to believe in this market. It seems like every penny stock just keeps going up and up and up. But anyway, as long as it holds that moving average, that is a very bullish sign. Inside days that hold above the 8-period exponential moving average, those are gifts, because that is a pause in the trend. And a lot of times an inside day, of course, is lower. So it gives you an opportunity to enter that stock at a lower price. Just because it has an inside day doesn't mean the trend is going to reverse. In fact, it's a better buying opportunity. Number one, you get in at a lower price. But number two, it is closer to this 8-period exponential moving average. When these patterns fail and they break that moving average, that's when I like to get out. Well, if another day that goes by, this average rises. Plus, if you buy on that second day, you're closer to it anyway, so your potential loss also gets smaller. So these inside days are gifts. Just because you see something like this happening doesn't mean you should run for cover. But let's get to the other one I talked about, which was CSCW. If we look at CSCW, it had basically the same thing. This one actually came all the way down to the 8-period exponential moving average, found support exactly at it, and closed the day near the upper part of the day's range. So this is actually looks like a bullish hammer if you're familiar with the candlestick patterns. But like I said, these inside days are gifts because they reduce your risk and get you in at a lower price. So if it does continue higher, you're in at a lower price, that potential gain is going to get bigger. So you don't necessarily have to buy on this big green candle. That's sort of chasing. In the first part of the move, I don't mind chasing a little bit. But when you start getting 3 or 4 days up in a row, I almost never chase those. I just wait for a pullback and a safer entry point. But I just want to touch base on those two that I talked about yesterday in case any of you are still watching them. These inside days are, they're not a bad thing. So just because it has one of these doesn't mean you want to close out the position. So I just wanted to share that with you guys in case you guys were wondering about yesterday's two stocks that I talked about. All right, well, there you have it, guys. I'm going to end the video right there. But if you have any questions or comments on any of these charts, please leave them down there in the comments section, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Please hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm for me, and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so you don't miss any future opportunities. Thank you so much for watching my video all the way to the end. And until next time, take care, everybody.